if you just said, well, I'm going to overpay my mortgage, 1% of my mortgage every year extra, so that's an extra £2,500 a year.
And one of the other things that I really love that you were talking about in terms of kind of not really knowing as you came out onto your own whether or not it was going to be a success is you kind of have to do things before you're ready. And welcome to this week's episode of A Beginner's Guide to Being a Grown-Up with me, your host, Sam Cooper-Gray. This week we talk about fashion, money and the 1% rule with Lisa Conway Hughes and learn about her journey to starting her own business via a blog and how doing really poorly in her A-levels drove her to always make a plan. So Lisa, welcome. And the first question as ever is, tell me a little bit about your journey into adulthood.
Well, there's the age side of things, but then I think there's the mental age side of things. Perhaps I'm kind of waiting for the mental age to catch up with the physical age. I think my route into adulthood was pretty straightforward, really. Went to school, went to university, got a job I didn't like, so went travelling and came back and sort of landed in financial services. Just by chance, really. I thought it might be an industry that would pay me well. Didn't really expect to love it, and definitely didn't expect to be here nearly 25 years later. So yeah, I think it was pretty conventional in a way.
And so what was it you hated about that first job then that made you go off travelling?
I think I had an elevated view of myself. I thought I should be paid loads more, and I didn't think I was being taken seriously enough, but perhaps they had a point. Yes, it was mainly I always thought I would work in fashion, and it's definitely an industry that I'm still interested in. I love even just understanding the business models in the fashion industry. But yeah, I thought that was going to be my career path, and it turned out it wasn't for me.
So you went travelling.
Mm-hmm.
You took a job like many people do because they want a job, and I'll be honest, that's how I ended up in financial services as well. I'm like, this looks like a good grad scheme, let's do that.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about that journey through your career and kind of how you ended up going out on your own and running a business.
So I joined, when I came back from travelling, this is really embarrassing to say compared to most students these days, but I was £12,000 in debt, and I felt really stressed about it. And so I thought, right, I need to pay off this student loan and get my life sorted. And I just put finance in the bracket of they pay well, so I'll do this for a while and get this debt sorted before I work out what I really want to do with my life. And I joined a company that was really old school, quite a bit of a baptism of fire, and I was flung on the phones almost straight away. And I think my Yorkshire accent then really helped me, and I was quite good on the phones. I was really good at booking appointments. I was really good at talking to clients, and I actually started to realise that I really like this. I like finding out what people want in life and what they want to achieve, what financial assets they've got, and building a plan that links those two things together. And that might sound really obvious that that's what we do in the financial industry these days, but back then it was a case of, I've got all these things to sell, can I sell them to the next person that walks through the door? And I suppose that's probably where my that first role and my morals didn't really align. So I set myself up with a task of getting qualified as an advisor. And at the time I was in a tied company, so we only had certain things that we could give to clients to solve their problems. I wanted to be in an independent environment where I could see what the client's problems were and then go and find the very best thing for them. So when I was in my early 30s, I joined a independent company, and I really set myself the goal of, I wanted to go into a company where I felt I was going to be one of the worst. I wanted to learn a lot, and I wanted to learn it fast. And I found that with Westminster Wealth, and I had a very happy home there for sort of 12, 13 years of my career, where I really learnt the craft of being a financial advisor. And I think what always carried with me were those skills that I learnt on the phones. I think being good with people and being good on the phone is something that, along with the practical side of being a financial advisor and the knowledge part of being financial, has probably got equal weighting, really, if you want clients to follow your plan. And around that time, I joined a networking agency called Sister Snog, and it was quite a bonkers organisation. It's still in force, and I'd never met women like it. I was probably 10, 20, 30 years younger than some of the other members, and they just made me really think about, well, what else is there? And that's out of many drunken First Friday lunches. Miss Lolly was born, and Miss Lolly is sort of my alter ego, and I used to blog anonymously as Miss Lolly, just really talking to people about money in a way that I wanted to be spoken to about money, because I didn't know no one in my family had a financial advisor. I didn't know if any of my parents' friends had a financial advisor. I didn't really know who did, but I did know that if I wasn't in this industry, I would really want one, having known about it. So that's where I started the Miss Lolly blog, and it wasn't very good when I look back, but at least it was a start in the right direction. And Miss Lolly now has really flourished into like an Instagram, YouTube. I wrote a book as well on money. So all of those things have come out of Miss Lolly, and Miss Lolly now is the real source of leads for me as a financial advisor. We almost have too many leads for us to manage, which is a wonderful position to be in. And then I think the reason, it's a very long answer to your question, but I think the reason why I set up by myself was, I think I just got to 40 and thought, am I going to stay where I am for the rest of my career, in a very happy, very safe environment to work in, or am I going to take that leap and do something? And strangely, I had lots of coaching around the topic, and the conclusion of that course of coaching was I was going to stay. I wasn't going to rock the boat, I was going to stay. And I didn't really think, I think I was just trying to find the easy way out, really. And then I was on a beach in Bali. I think work was out of my mind, and well, probably not quite, because I was reading Professional Advisor magazine. And there was a list of the top 100 companies, and I just could feel this pang of jealousy, and I was like, I'd really, really want to give that a go. Why would I not? And I thought, well, if I get to 50 and I've not tried, I think I would be quite sad. So now's the time. And then a perspective that I hadn't thought about, some of my friends who are a little bit older than me said, well, you need to get it done now, because before menopause hits, you won't have as much energy. So I was like, okay, I'll get started. And so I applied, I got my licence directly authorised with the FCA, which is actually quite hard to do. I got that reasonably quickly, sort of within 9 months of starting to write the application. And I didn't have any time to doubt my reasonings for doing it, because within 2 weeks of getting the licence, the company was up and running, and we just had to run with it. I was really lucky in that the company where I'd been allowed me to take all of my clients with me. They really didn't hold me back. They were really kind about and encouraging, actually, about helping me set up. So I couldn't have landed on my feet more in that way. And now we're 18 months down the line, and I just can't believe it's never not been like this. So it's been a really amazing 18 months.
And I mean, as you say, phenomenal that your previous company supported you. But I'm going to take you back a little bit, because you glossed over it a little bit, which is, I started a blog, then I wrote a book. So tell me a little bit about the book and what drove you to write the book.
Well, I had no intention of writing a book, because a lot of people say to become a key person of influence, you should write a book. And in my networking groups, lots of people had said that to me, and I just, what would be the point, I think, was where would I even find the time as well?
Well, yes.
And on Instagram, out of the blue, completely out of the blue, Penguin contacted me and said, would you like to write a book for us on money? And I think it's just the kind of thing you don't turn down, because it's not going to get asked twice, is it? So I thought, why not? And it was a very strict programme of writing that book. It was summer of 2018, and I had 6 weeks to submit 60,000 words.
Wow.
And I think I just got really lucky in my mind. I got in a real structure of it, bearing in mind at this time I had a 4-year-old and a 3-year-old as well. I used to get up early in the morning, in the week, write 2,000 to 3,000 words, and I gave myself sort of no restriction. It doesn't matter if it was rubbish, just write it. And then that night, think of the tomorrow morning's topic. Would do that, and then on the weekends I would commit to sort of 10,000, whatever I could get out of it. But I thought I'd sort of written this really lovely polished article, and then it got halved, let's put it that way, and so I had to then go through this another round of writing again, and it was amazing really, that process, because I learned so much about how to write well. Who knows if I do write well on the topic, but it made me think more about the way that I write and the topics people actually want to hear about when it comes to money. I'm glad I did it, but it was hardcore. Sort of juggling kids and
60,000 words in 6 weeks sounds pretty hardcore.
With a full-time job
and children.
Yeah.
So please tell the listeners what the book's called, and we will
put it's called Money Lessons. It's Money Lessons. By all means buy it, but it is very out of date now, so it's not necessarily a plug for the book.
I just think what an interesting journey to go through, and I love your reaction to randomly Penguin, probably one of the biggest publishers in the world, just reaching out on Instagram and saying, would you like to write a book with us? Was, well, I'm not going to get asked again. Why not? I think that's an amazing reaction to that kind of ask. Was I think a lot of us would have like instant imposter syndrome if they asked me that and said, oh my God, I can't possibly do that. If I take you back to your 18-year-old self, so, pre-university, getting ready to go off and enjoy your adult life, what would she recognise? If she saw you now, what would she recognise in you?
Well, when I was 18, I did horrendously in my A-levels, and I was really cross with myself, and it was all my own fault because I spent far too much time in nightclubs and not enough time in the library. And so I was just sort of licking my own wounds, and I'd gone to uni through clearing, and I did French, and I really wanted to do economics. And I think I felt I had a lot to prove, because I felt that my results didn't reflect me. And I'd always been hardworking, so really since I got my national insurance number, I've always had 2 or 3 jobs, and enjoyed earning my own money and working hard. And I continued that throughout uni, I would work anywhere that anyone would pay me, really. All sorts of very weird jobs, put it that way. And I think that's what I would still recognise in myself now, that ability to work really, really hard and head down, and enjoy getting a good job well done, if that's not too many dones in that sentence. So I think that's what I would recognise. I think I think I would be surprised as an 18-year-old that it was in this industry. But maybe that's good, because maybe that's where the economics came in, and that interest that I naturally had at that age. So maybe it was just meant to be that way.
Yeah, and it sounds like at 18 what you really wanted to do was fashion. So that would have been a completely different life that you would have had than doing the job you do now, and the blog and the book. And
yeah, I had this image in my head at 18. I was going to wear really beautiful white winter coats and just get chauffeured around. I don't think I'd really worked out how it was going to happen.
Very Anna Wintour.
Yes, exactly.
Absolutely. Bit Devil Wears Prada. I love it. So have you touched on kind of not doing well in your A-levels, too much clubbing. I can identify with that. have you experienced any other failure that you've had to learn through as you've kind of, obviously you left that first job, but that was more about not kind of living up to expectations.
Yeah.
Have you got times where you've kind of gone, oh my God, what's happened, and had to pick yourself up?
I need to touch wood when I say this, but not hugely. I mean, there's always things when I look back and think, oh, I wish I'd done them differently. But I think I've always been quite direct in what I'm trying to achieve and have a really good plan of where I'm going next. I think if I don't have a plan, I feel really aimless and I feel uncomfortable. I think weirdly I feel comfortable outside of my comfort zone, if that makes sense. Keeps me not
As long as
bored.
you've got a plan.
As long as I've got a really good plan. Yes, exactly.
I can
So
see why you do well in
fortunately,
financial services. We like a plan.
we like a plan.
So you've obviously made then some really good decisions over the years, whether from having a plan or from serendipity of kind of joining financial services just to pay off that student debt. And like you know, I left university with what at the time I thought was a devastating amount of debt. And if I look at
Yeah.
what people have to pay now, I'm just like, wow, I was so lucky. Out of all the decisions that you've made, what would you say is the best decision you've made?
I think the common theme in the decisions that I'm most proud of would be ones where I've really dared to just jump and do it and worry about it later. I think that's what they've all got in common. Like, there were so many reasons not to set up this business. So many reasons not to set up the Miss Lolly blog when I didn't have permission to do it, or I didn't even have permission to write the book from my compliance. But when I'd signed the contract and written it, I mean, it was amazing. I was lucky in that they read through the book, compliance did, and found no errors or anything that they wanted to change.
Wow.
But I'm not sure what would have happened if they had found anything they want to change. So maybe that's a lot of luck in that decision.
Well, yeah, absolutely. But I would also say you clearly thought it through in your early morning writings and your weekend writings, and have clearly learnt your trade, because, you know, otherwise I'm sure they would have told you if there was stuff they didn't like. We all get given lots of advice. Obviously, you give advice for a living. But what's the best advice you've been given that you completely ignored?
Do your homework.
Don't go funny.
Yeah. Well, I know it. I know a very good one. So I was pregnant and tired in a bar one evening, and it was when I was just setting up Miss Lolly, and I don't know what this man said to me because I wasn't paying any attention. It was a friend of a friend who's very clever, very switched on, but I was just not interested in hearing his advice for me that day. And I found out later on, sort of a few months later, that he sold his company for many millions and probably was someone that I should have listened to. So I don't know if it was a mistake because I wasn't listening in the first place, but that could have been advice that I should have listened to, but I actually never even heard, let alone listened.
The road less travelled.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So we like to ask all of our guests to set a personal challenge to our listeners. So it can be anything. We've had everything from well-being to business advice to personal advice about kind of developing your skills. So if you could set a personal challenge to our listeners, what would that personal challenge be?
To take baby steps, not to feel scared or nervous about investing and money. And that could come from just talking about it with friends or your partner more often and more regularly, or your wider family. Or it could be, the whole purpose of Miss Lolly Online now is that I think if you watched an Instagram video every couple of days, you'd learn loads over the course of a year, 5 years, 10 years. So just putting yourself in a situation where you can learn teeny snippets of money information that can help you get that education that we were never given, really. I think that would be.
So tell me a little bit, I want to go back to Miss Lolly about kind of how that's evolved from, a bit of a blog anonymously to
Yeah.
having your own channel. Tell me a little bit about what it's trying to achieve and kind of your experience of evolving that.
Yeah, so there's a business side and there's a personal side of reasons why I do it. So the personal side is I just really enjoy helping people and people that probably wouldn't necessarily come to us for advice. So putting out that information and putting it out there regularly and just really useful resources to help people. I get a lot of I get a lot of enjoyment from doing that, I think. And the business side of it is that those people do sometimes, often actually, not sometimes, do appreciate that, and they are the type of people that would become clients. And at the moment, we only take 20 clients a month from our inquiries from Instagram, where there are often many more that we could help. So yeah, I think this lolly drives my business in terms of it's the referrals, but I hope it's my way of giving back. I suppose I speak to the camera thinking of what I would have wanted to know before I knew what I know now, because financial advice and being good with your money isn't as hard or as complicated as my industry likes to make out it is, I think.
And why do you think? I think this is a really common theme that we see, which is people just don't know where to start. Why do you think it is that people just haven't got connected to kind of understanding and having the confidence to invest or just think about their money in a different way?
I think it might be, if I think of my family, my mum and dad didn't necessarily need to because they had final salary pension schemes, so very guaranteed pensions. We've got this layer of Englishness about us where it's rude to talk about money. Maybe that is the real setback. We're never taught about it. For example, Fidelity do this women and money survey every year, and we're really we're getting better, but countries like China and India, the women are really competent at talking about money and don't feel fearful of it, but I think we do as a country.
There's an education piece that's missing of just
Yeah.
helping everybody to really truly understand what the
Yes.
opportunity is versus the risk. And I think that brings us to the final question, which is one I ask absolutely everybody, which is if you could put something into the guide, if you could put a piece of advice into the beginner's guide to being a grown-up, what would that be?
It would be to harness the power of 1%, which means you don't just have to be a millionaire before you start getting good with your money. It's about doing tiny things and doing the right things regularly to achieve big things. So some examples, and it's not limited to this, but some examples of the power of 1% would be the first one. If you just think of your mortgage, let's say you've got a £250,000 mortgage, 4% over 25 years. If you just said, well, I'm going to overpay my mortgage, 1% of my mortgage every year extra, so that's an extra £2,500 a year. So £208 a month you'd be paying. That will save you 33,800 of interest alone over that mortgage term. But really life-changingly, it will pay your mortgage off 5 years earlier. So your £50 a week has paid your mortgage off 5 years earlier. That's a smallish commitment to have a very big outcome. So that I think is a great power of 1%. The next is, and I'm not sponsored by Fidelity, even though I've mentioned them twice now, but Fidelity have this thing called the power of small amounts, and you can just Google it. And you put in your age and you put in your salary, and it shows you what if you just put 1% extra into your pension, what would that lead to? And bearing in mind, the average woman at the age of 60 has just over £40,000 in their pension. If you were 25, earning 25,000, you put 1% extra in, you're going to have an extra £64,000 in your pension pot.
Wow.
So that's more than 150% of the average. If you think, oh my God, I've just left it too late, let's say you're 50 years old earning £50,000 a year, you pay in 1%, that's an extra 18,700 in your pot. So that's 50% of what the average person has just by 1%, which I think is amazing. And then the last one is, if you have been investing, but perhaps not being very clinical about the way that you're investing, there are two very easy things that you can do. You can review the performance that you've got and try to get 1% extra, or you can review the costs and charges that you're paying and see if you can reduce those by, say, 1%. But if you invest and you got 5% return, so in this example I've put investing for 25 years, £250 a month, and you got 5% return, you'll walk away with 146,000 over that time.
Wow.
Which 5% is not a huge return to be getting, but if you got 6% return, you would increase that to nearly 170,000. So it's an extra 23,000. So if you just did all of those, you've got your mortgage paid off 5 years earlier, you save 33,000 of interest. You've got 170,000 in investments. And where was the other one? Oh, and you've got an extra 64,000 in your pension pot. So those little things really, really do add up.
And I think that 1% applies to so many things, doesn't it? And obviously you've talked about it from a financial point of view, and I think the education's so important of helping people understand actually the difference, what feels like a tiny incremental each week, what a difference that could make to your long-term future. But also I think that 1% applies to everything, right? And one of the other things that I really love that you were talking about in terms of kind of not really knowing as you came out onto your own whether or not it was going to be a success, is you kind of have to do things before you're ready.
Yes,
because
exactly.
If you wait until you're ready, as you said, you'd got to 50 and you'd be like, oh, I'm ready now, but you'd have missed 10 years of running your own business.
Exactly. I think sometimes you just have to jump.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think fantastic advice going into the guide, Lisa. Thank you so much. I loved your personal challenge as well, and listening to your story. I'm sure Miss Molly will continue to be really successful. I know we will put the link to Miss Molly into the show notes so people can follow along and watch your Instagram and your YouTube. And just a big thank you for joining us today and sharing your story with us.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode. Please do like, subscribe and follow wherever you get your podcasts. As I'm sure you hear lots of podcasters tell you, it is really important to us and it helps us to understand who is watching and make the most of the show for you. Next week, we have Lee Smith joining us, and she will be telling us a story about how she started Impact Match and the journey she took to get there. And that includes hustling a bus company with her nan at 12 years old, and how she got the boss of a massive, great big corporate to support her in retraining to go and do something completely new and much more besides. So please do join us when the next episode drops on Monday. And in the meantime, enjoy being a grown-up.